Geek Time.
Countdown control. The liquid hydrogen vent valve has been closed and flight pressurization is underway.
To Geek Time.
Mark and counting.
If you know how to give the Vulcan hand sign, if you've never kissed a girl or tasted wine, if you write all your papers in Linux, then you know it's Geek Time. If you still live with your parents and you're 38 years old, you got a pocket protector and you blog about having a cold. It's Geek Time. Can't wait to get an iPad. It's Geek Time. You're like Ogle and Superbad. It's Geek Time. You got a coffee mug warmer and an Iron Man mask. It's Geek Time. You dress up and go to Comic-Con. It's Geek Time. You know all the lines from Wrath of Khan. It's Geek Time. You like asteroids and shiny droids and iPhones. It's Geek Time. Time to get a life. It's Geek Time. You will never get a wife. It's Geek Time.
The next generation. Technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Welcome to Geek Time, the next generation.
Welcome to Geek Time.
Hosted by Chris Bors.
Don't cross the stream.
Make it so.
And Tim Warner.
Never tell me the odds.
Bringing you all things geek-worthy from the world of pop culture.
Get to the chopper! Geek Time.
All right, welcome to another Geek Time show coming out. Just season 1, episode 8. These things are just flying by. And with me now is... Oh, shoot, forgot your name.
Tim! It's Tim, David.
Tim Warner's joining me now. See, you miss a show and I forget your name.
Missed it by that much.
Oh, man, massive brain fart. But joining us later in the show is Marlene Sharp. Now, I'm so excited to talk to her because she took part in the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, bringing it to the big screen. I've been trying to line up I've been trying to line up a conversation with her for a while, and today we have made it work. So we're going to talk to her later. So, yeah, I guess we'll just jump into our geeking out, freaking out.
Geeking out or freaking out.
And Tim, we'll go with you first.
Well, my geeking out and freaking out both would be, I just saw Captain America Brave New World. I saw it last night. Everybody's been talking bad on this movie, and I know that, we even mentioned some things.
And we'll keep the spoiler free for you guys that haven't seen it yet.
I will say that's not really true, but it's kind of true.
Oh, dear. Here we go.
I liked it. I actually liked it.
Oh, nice.
It wasn't a perfect movie. There were things I had problems with. But Anthony Mackie's selling me on as Captain America. I like the guy. He's got a new Falcon. This movie really wants to be Captain America Winter Soldier, the same kind of idea. I'm not going to go into spoilers for it, but...
All right, I got 2 questions for you then,
yes.
now hearing this. First, how do you feel going forward since we're marching towards an Avengers? Because, like I said, it sounds like they're trying to get that original cast back, but replacing, like, the Iron Man, the Black Widow for, trying to get back to the core people without the core people.
Right. If I didn't know what was coming based on movies or hints from like what's going on behind the scenes stuff, I would maybe be like, I don't know, with some of it. But basically to say this, Anthony Mackie's winning me over as Captain America. But having him be Captain America, I always questioned. There is a part where Bucky shows up for 2 seconds. There, I spoiled this.
Oh, spoiler!
Spoiler alert.
Oh, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I want to keep this fresh when I go in.
Okay.
So my second question is, now, is the Red Hulk in this thing more than 5 minutes, I hope?
Yes.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Not much more.
Oh, no. Here we go.
It's a trap!
The Red Hulk or Thaddeus is not the villain of the movie.
Well, that's another spoiler alert. Oh man, we may have to kick you off Geek Time here.
Go to any YouTube show right now, and they will tell you who the villain is.
I guess we'll have Stan Lee have the last word here.
Enough said.
Thanks, Stan. All right, so let's get to my geeking out, freaking out, and it's so I've been watching the Only Murders in the Building.
Yes.
I love that show. I started season 2, but I'm freaking out because I got like halfway through the season, and one of the main characters, Mabel, who's played by Selena Gomez, she starts to befriend this art student. And there's a point in, I think it's like episode 3, where she goes over her house and the friend is like, I love you. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? And things just went kind of crazy after this. They started kissing and everything else. I'm like, oh no, what's going on here? I didn't want this in my show. Because, yeah, I was like, the plot did not need this side story at all. I just hate when they crowbar this stuff into great shows. Okay, so we've got a lot of stuff to get to in our geek news and notes. A lot of interesting news came out, so let's get to that now. All right, one of the big things I saw that I'm very excited about is there is a Goonies 2 in the works. And what's interesting is the news also broke that Steven Spielberg is now attached to this production, and it's on the fast track now. They've got a script writer, and
I don't know if
it's
that's
coming
any
along.
good or bad. I mean, wasn't Spielberg attached to the last 2 Indiana Jones movies? I know he was the 4th one, but was he attached to the 5th one?
I don't know if he actually had a hand in it. I think I think
produced
it's one of those. Yeah, I think it's kind of one of those executive producer credits that it's like, hey, we got a name attached to it. But it sounds like Steven Spielberg has got a big hand in this, which makes sense because the first one, that was his baby.
Yeah, but he didn't direct it. Chris Columbus directed it.
I know, but as far as the script goes, you're probably wondering how you're going to make this work. And for a long time, I thought I actually had a storyline in my head where I think this could work, where I always thought that if they do a second one, I would love to see them play off the treasure hunting aspect of, them 30 years in the future, whatever. A couple of them are running out of money or whatnot. And I was thinking, they find a map, like there was part of the treasure, and on the back of the map, it's like, oh, wait a minute, you only found part of the treasure. So the other part of the treasure is spread out somewhere else that they go on some madcap adventures. And
One-Eye Willie's other half of the treasure.
Yeah. So
okay.
There's got to be, that's one of the reasons I love Goonies, because it was like part dungeon crawler, part real world, whatever. And so I just, they can keep that dungeon crawler like aspect.
Sure.
In the sequel, I would love to see it. I say bring it on. They'll probably focus on their kids this time around, which a lot of franchises are doing.
I don't know if I have faith in it anymore. I've become so jaded, man, with these reboots and remakes, man. It's like, you're going to give me another Ghostbusters Afterlife. And it's like, I don't know if I need it.
Yeah, I know. I hope they focus more on the original cast. And that even brings into question, will Josh Brolin be in it? Because he's such a big character.
Right.
I know he was on the Conan O'Brien podcast a while ago, and they brought up how he was on the Goonies, and he had a lot to say about being on the set and how he loved it. And so I think they could probably get him back, because he just has that nostalgia for the time and the work that he did on the movie. So I'm pretty sure. And of course, it's interesting because what's his name? Key, who played Data. Key something, I don't know how to.
Yeah, he's the one. He just won the Academy Award for what was it? Everything, Everywhere, Every. I don't know the name of it.
Right, and I think that's probably why they're going forward with this too, because he's just blowing up lately. So this is like the perfect time to get him aboard. Sean
Short
Austin
Round and the Temple of Doom. The money just writes itself. You want to make Paramount. You want to make Indiana Jones movies. Harrison Ford's too old. He's too damn old. Get freaking this guy in. Do some Short Round movies, man. Have him with the hat.
Hey, Indy!
Dude,
I can't do his voice.
I would watch that movie.
Oh, me too. It's funny too, because I also have this in the news. Some Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So I guess the director came out and he said he was hurt when critics and audiences rejected Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and he faced a monumental challenge of delivering a satisfying finale for Harrison's Ford iconic adventurer. Now, I have to take umbrage with what he said because it was a horrible movie. It was a horrible script. I've explained on here before. The first half hour of this movie was incredible. It was a nod to the past. It was a love letter to what was.
Right.
It was a nod to the serial that they established. And then after that, once they brought it to present day, I'm trying not to be very cynical with this series because I know what it's become. Like, they added this woman into this. I felt like she was just crowbarred into the script. She did not have to be there. And the psychology of this woman did not make sense. First, she hates Indy. Then she's like, oh, I love you. Now I hate you again. And it's like, it made no sense.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
The criticism that this film got was very warranted. And that was a horrible script. I don't know how you even got that approved, greenlit. Own it, man. Own it.
He says he needed to get the ending for Indy. Indy had a great ending. The Last Crusade. That was them riding off in the sunset is as good of an ending as you're ever gonna do. A buddy of mine said once that he's like, cause he was not a fan of Temple of Doom, but he's like, I like Indy when he's fighting Nazis or biblical kind of artifacts and stuff. Once you start getting Indy into other situations like that aren't so cut and dry, it doesn't work. And like you start bringing Indy into the Cold War like they did in Part 4, it just didn't work. I mean, I like the voodoo stuff from Part 2. I grew up on Temple of Doom, so I always have a special place in my heart for it. But like, I get what he's saying, where it's like Indiana Jones versus Nazis is always just kind of something that works.
Well, I will say, and this is a problem that I've seen in Hollywood lately, I just feel when I watch this movie that the script was not finished. Like, it needed a couple more rewrites. And that's what I feel like a lot of these movies that are produced that get greenlit. I'm like, how do they get greenlit? They keep putting out this material. Same thing with the new Ghostbusters. I feel like it needed a couple more rewrites or
is that
like
a problem of the studios going, we need a date here, so you have the script done by this time, so they don't get to kind of go over and redo it and double check
think so.
things?
I don't know if it's just the mentality of script writers these days or what, because look at what happened with Die Hard. This was a movie that wasn't written. They were writing it as they were filming it. And it still became a classic.
There was a writer's strike at that time. That's why people forget. That's why 89 had so many movies come out, because the writer's strike was over at that point, I believe. And so now they were able to go ahead and unleash all these movies every freaking week. Last Crusade, Batman, Back to the Future 2, Lethal Weapon. Like, you just one after another, hit after hit.
But that's what drives me nuts, because you have a franchise that's where these characters are already psychologically written. All you have to do is put them in a scenario where it works. And with Ghostbusters, wow, they really dropped the ball. I'm like, the physics of this universe just did not do it for me. It just did not make sense. I was out. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Ghostbusters, many have said, is lightning in a bottle. So it's just, to me, they haven't been able to figure that recipe out for Ghostbusters. And then you cut to Afterlife, where they didn't even try to make a comedy. They just tried to give you like pull the heartstrings with it.
Yeah, see, I liked Afterlife. I love what they did with that because it made sense to me. But when they shifted gears to this Frozen Empire, I think it was the last one.
I didn't see Frozen Empire. Afterlife together.
Horrible.
We saw Afterlife together, and I thought Afterlife was fine, but the problem I had was like, this is not a comedy, and like they diverged so far. It's like everybody's trying to do that same thing and then have the different tones here and there.
Right, and talking about other franchises that can't get it right, we'll go to Star Wars here because they've got some new movie news with Jedi, Star Wars Jedi Order.
Can you hear the sighs loud and clear? It's every time I hear somebody say Star Wars now, I'm just like, that's my ultimate reaction now.
0.0.
Yeah, it's just crazy. So they're bringing back Rey. Daisy Ridley, who's supposed to be the star of this new Jedi Order. There was an interview that they did where she's all excited. She is so excited to be in this movie. I guess they dropped that they have a new writer on this. And I'm just sitting there going, who's really excited to see this movie that they're going to go forward with this. I'm just like, read the room, Disney. No one liked what you did with the last trilogy. You're going to throw her into another trilogy? Like, this is ridiculous. At this point, I think I'd rather see a Star Wars Holiday Special 2 over this franchise.
Oh, dude, you can't do it now because B. Arthur passed away, man. Like,
dude, we can AI. We can bring her back.
No. Do it the way that all other Hollywood movies. B. Arthur had a daughter who now runs the cantina, and
yeah, there you go.
And she's in love with the guy who has the hole in his head that drinks through his head. Okay, like, okay.
You know what they should really do is, if they want to go this AI route, they should bring back all kinds of characters from the 1970s that were really big. Bring back like George Burns, be in the cantina, populating the cantina.
That would be funny. That would be pretty funny, yeah.
Lou Gossett Jr.
They kind of did Ray dirty, man, because in the first of that trilogy, Force Awakens, I liked Ray. I did. I thought it was like, I liked. There was a scene where she's on is it not Tatooine? Was it what?
It was Tatooine, yeah.
No, it wasn't Tatooine. It was a different sand planet. I swear to God, it was.
Oh God! Oh, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it was. It was a different sand planet,
okay.
But it wasn't. They never really made her cool, I guess is kind of way to put it. Like, every time we got close, like, oh, she's gonna get trained by Luke. Oh no, she's not. Oh, like there might be this kind of like she's in love with the arch villain. Like, maybe there's this kind of interestingness there. Oh no, she's not.
So much flip flopping.
Yeah,
a lot of flip flopping.
They didn't do it right. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, okay, we tried it, we did it. The fans did not like it. Let's go back and reboot this thing, because even
you want a Star Wars reboot?
Yeah, I do. Well, after Episode 6, I want this franchise to succeed. And for all you Geek Time fans out there, listen to the Tyler Hamm interview that I did, because he actually did the special effects for Rogue One. And even he agreed that he loved what they did with the expanded universe before Disney just ditched it all.
The books.
Like, that's what I want to see him do. Go back to the expanded universe. Look, we can go CGI, we can go AI now, and I'd be for that. Because the stories that they crafted, starting with Truce of Bakora, that took place right after Return of the Jedi, these were solid books. Yeah. Especially the Timothy Zahn series. Like, I want to see them go back, make them computer animated, get voice actors, or get, Mark Hamill, I'm sure he's just sitting at home.
Like, complaining.
But let's bring this back to life. Like, that's how you breathe life back into this franchise. I don't want to see them go the Ray route again. It's just,
people were speculating. Like, there were the fan ideas for Episode 9 were so far better than the idea they actually gave us, because it's like, oh, like, I remember hearing ideas. Listen to some of these ideas. Number 1, Darth Plagueis being the villain, who was mentioned in Episode 3, who was the Darth that basically created Sidious, and then Sidious killed or whatever. But Darth Plagueis being behind it all. There were some stupid ones, like the Ewoks controlling, like, puppeteering Palpatine after he blew up and his ship fell on the Endor moon. Like, there was some weird stuff, but still, there was a lot of cool ideas that people had out there, and then they just gave us Palpatine again. It's like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
That was weird.
You can't come up with anything better. That's the problem. You can't come up with anything better.
All right, with that, we'll be taking our first break here on Geek Time, and when we return, we're going to be talking to Marlene Sharp from the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. Don't miss it.
Technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Geek Time continues transmitting next with
Sonic the Hedgehog Movie's Marlene Sharp.
If you're looking for the latest and greatest in tabletop miniatures, well, you better check out WizKids. They just sent me their newest offerings from their Star Trek line. This set is amazing. It's called Star Trek Into the Unknown, and they've got ships from both the Federation and Dominion War, which spans Deep Space Nine, Star Trek The Next Generation, and those were some of my favorite series growing up. Wow, I'm looking at the Enterprise right now, Enterprise D. They've painted all the little windows, the decals, it's just amazing. They also have a big set, which contains Jem'Hadar's battle cruisers and fighters and Constellation-class warships on the Federation side. Just an amazing set. You can pick this up now wherever you can find tabletop items for sale. You know, those hobby shops and things like that. You won't find them at Targets. WizKids, also available on their website. All right, guys, so if you're a fan of the Irate Gamer series on YouTube, which was my flagship show, they are now available on Blu-ray. I finally did the first 2 volumes, and you can get the first, 80 episodes on 2 volume sets. So it's quite the nostalgic overload for all you guys.
Nice.
So the first edition has 61 episodes in all, contains seasons 1 through 6. The second set contains seasons 7 and 8, which contains over 3-4 hours of content, bonus features, all that good stuff. And if all goes well, I'll have the third set being worked on this summer, which will contain seasons 9 and 10.
Plus,
so
Ronnie the Skeleton's going to do commentary, right?
Ronnie the Skeleton is there in all his glory, even in bloopers and bonus scenes and all that good stuff. So if you want that, go to Ghost Dr. Chris. That's where they are available for sale. Oh, I want to get my Irate Gamer sets.
This is Commander Sulu, and you're listening to Geek Time.
Oh my.
All right, welcome back to Geek Time, and we're back with our first guest, who I'm very excited to talk about because I saw the new Sonic movie. I really enjoyed it. I love the franchise. I love the direction they're going with it. But now we're going to talk to Marlene Sharp, who is in on the ground floor with this series and bringing it to the big screen.
Our next guest puts the green in Green Hill Zone, the robot into Dr. Robotnik. She was even one mighty Morphin Power Toy Coordinator. Geek Time proudly welcomes the supersonic Marlene Sharp.
So thanks for joining us on Geek Time, Marlene.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Like I said, I saw the Sonic 3 movie. It was great. And I'm so glad this franchise has come to the big screen, the silver screen. And you had a hand in that, correct?
Somewhat, yes. Mostly for the first movie. So we'll go back in time a little bit to 2015 when I was hired at Sega. I was originally hired, my title was producer, TV series. And that mainly encompassed Sonic Boom, the Cartoon Network show that we had.
Were you starting development all the way back then, 2015?
Oh, before that, the movie movie had already been in development for like 5 years prior to that. And
oh my gosh.
The making of the first Sonic movie, that's the movie I want to see, actually, because then I would be
yeah, I want to hear all the iterations of how that went down.
Yeah, so there was originally a gentleman named Avi Arad, who is very instrumental in Marvel.
From Marvel fame, yep. And for those of you who don't know, he was actually one of the driving forces behind bringing this Spider-Man, the original trilogy, to Sony, the big screen. He had a hand in that.
Yes, so Avi Arad had acquired the big screen rights for Sonic at one point, and I believe this predated me. This was like 2010, maybe even before that. And so he was working directly with Sega Japan, I think, and the San Francisco office too. But he was developing a film franchise for a couple of years, and for whatever reason, that fell apart. So then the decision was made in Japan, we're not doing a Sonic movie. It was not, I guess, the experience that they wanted. So they said, we'll never do a Sonic movie. And so there was a team of 3 junior executives in the gaming and show business. So it was Dimitri Johnson, Dan Jevons, and Toby Asher. And the 3 of them were friends, and they loved video games. And Toby was the assistant to Neil Moritz. And they were just like shooting the breeze one night, and they're like, oh, what do you think the best video game movie would be? So they had to get Neil Moritz to buy in on it, and they did eventually. they finally did convince Neil, who as I hear, this is secondhand information, but I heard that he did not know what Sonic was at all when they said, hey, we've got a great idea. I think it was Toby was the messenger from what I understand. And he's like, hey, Neil, what do you think about Sonic the Hedgehog? And he's like, what?
Yeah, refresh me what that is.
Yeah, right. So they had to, so I think that the key takeaway here is that you are always pitching in show business. So they had to convince Neil. Then they had to go about convincing Sega Japan. From what I understand, they were rejected. It wasn't like, oh, okay, you know. Finally, there was a deal that was done between Neil Maritz's original film, which at the time was based at Sony. So it would become a Sony movie. So, and then Sony invested and Sega invested and the development started. It was not smooth sailing. And so when I came on board, there were two distinct camps. Or three, actually. There was Sega Japan, there was Sega of America, and then there was the movie team. And everybody was working in a very siloed way.
I know Avi Arad worked with Sony for a while. Was he anywhere in this or no? He was gone by then.
He was totally gone. He was part of Sega Japan's decision to not ever do a Sonic movie.
Gotcha. Okay.
So in the middle of this whole process, when I was at Sega, the original film company left Sony and went to Paramount. So now Sonic, you'll see all the Sonic movies are Paramount movies because that's where Neil Maritz's his deal at Sony ended for whatever reason. And then he became affiliated with Paramount. Paramount started hosting his company on their studio lot and financing his overhead and whatnot.
This is so interesting. I've never heard you talk about any of this stuff. Do you remember like a couple of the first incarnations of how this film was presented?
Oh yeah. I've read a few versions of the script, but it wasn't anything like the movie one that you see now. And there were several, there were a lot of changes. I mean,
do you remember any of the earlier stuff, how it played out?
Not really. No. Like I said, the last 10 years have been difficult. We've had fires, pandemic. I've been through a lot of layoffs and whatnot. And so brain cells die with every tragedy that happens.
Gotcha.
So,
I hear you.
There's always drama behind the scenes. The making of these movies, and especially the kids' movies, when there's toys involved, you can bet there's a lot of pain.
Oh yeah, Jack Specific was all over that one with the toy. Now, do you remember if it was always supposed to be a CGI generated mixed with real world elements?
That's from what I remember. That was always the intention, that it would be the animated characters interacting with humans. So I shouldn't have said that. So to me, a script is totally different if there's the scenes are structured differently and dialogue is replaced or whatever. But a layperson might read the script and say oh yeah, this is the same story. I mean, they might not notice the fine points. So I mean, it was meant to be kind of an origin story for Sonic, how he got here type of thing. But I'll tell you what was missing. And this is where my nosy neighbor personality comes into play. Because I had a little taste of working on the movie, through working on licensing and how to promote and also how to cross promote with Sonic Boom. That was another thing we were trying to figure out. What elements from the movie, if any, can we incorporate in the TV show, and should we, and how can they coexist, and what's canon and what's not canon, and all this. So, but
I bet there's long discussions about that.
Oh yeah, long discussion. yes. Canon was every day, a lot of discussion and contemplation about that. The thing that Sonic really had going for it at that time was social media. And I was very fortunate to sit right next to Aaron Weber for a year. So I watched him. He is a magician with fandoms. And
Oh yeah, I've met Aaron, and he is just like the Sonic whiz when it comes to that stuff.
the Sonic savant. Yes, he definitely is. And so he knows the lore backwards and forwards. Like he would go toe to toe with Sonic Team in Japan. Not always well received, but we always enjoyed hearing about his adventures in, riling up the management. So then I also found out that I had a friend who was very good friends with the movie team. His name is David Uslan, and his father is Michael Uslan, whose name you might recognize from Batman. His dad, David's dad, is the boy who loved Batman. He brought Batman to the big screen. Everything since the old-timey TV Batman show is Michael Uslan's doing.
I think I know who you're talking about. Okay, yeah, he's an older guy. He had a hand in bringing Batman, the Tim Burton series, to the movie screen because he was the driving force behind that. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm friends with David and Michael, and they were so excited for me when I got this job at Sega.
Oh, wow.
And so then they told me, oh, well, you must know. They're just like, took it for granted. They're like, well, you must know the movie team. You must know our pal, Dimitri Johnson. I was like, no, I don't. I said, I've been tasked to do a couple of things related to the movie, but no, there seems to be no connection between our Burbank office. No, we don't really know any of the people. And I was like, first of all, we all need to start talking to each other. Otherwise, this train is headed for a disaster. Everybody would really benefit from Aaron being involved, because at least he could get the fans excited about it, and he has valuable input about the whole franchise. And I was like, let's prepare some gift bags for them and give them some, because everybody likes free stuff. So we gave them a bunch of free stuff. You can build bridges, mend fences, whatever. It turned out that the Dimitri, Dan, and Toby were really big fans of the social media, of the Sonic social media, and they followed it, and they didn't realize it was Aaron. And so at a certain point, Dimitri said to me, we went to lunch, he's like, do you think Aaron would write the script for this movie? And I was like, wow. Oh, wow. I don't know. I don't even know if he has a background as a screenwriter, but okay, hold that thought. Well, let's continue to introduce you to the right people in the office and whatever. And so instead of being siloed, my goal was to get everybody talking. And it happened. And it happened, and it turned out really great. And then also, Aaron was responsible for bringing in Tyson Hess. I think he was a freelancer when Archie Comics had the Sonic license. And he was a fan favorite. Everybody loved his designs of Sonic. Then when that whole Ugly Sonic moment happened online,
right.
Basically what happened was Tyson was sent to the UK to work with the CG animators on how to properly render Sonic so that the fans would not riot. How to correct that mistake. Excuse me. That was Ugly Sonic. And so now Tyson...
Well, let me stop you there for a second, because you hit upon something. When the fan reaction of the first Sonic, which they call Ugly Sonic, came out, was there just a total freak out at the offices? Like, we better make a course correction.
I went to work at Level 5, another Japanese game studio, and another Sega employee I had recruited to come over to Level 5. And on the day that Ugly Sonic happened, I will be honest with you, we had some good laughs, because we're like, well, not our problem now. We knew that it was only the best intentions, but we were like, wow, we're glad our heads aren't on the chopping block.
I just imagine people jumping out the windows and be like, oh my God.
Yeah, but in my opinion, that's the best thing that could have ever happened to the movie, because it was this moment that really proved to the fans that they were being heard, and it was this opportunity that Sega and Original Film and Paramount, they could show that, okay, we recognize that we made a mistake and we will fix it. We're going to do whatever it takes to make it right. We are sorry. And so actually well, this is kind of going off on another tangent altogether, but I think it's interesting. So my friend Chuck Williams, who was the head of Marza Animation Planet, working with us in the Burbank office. And so Chuck takes full responsibility for Ugly Sonic. He says, and so I had him to come and speak to, I mentor a lot of adults on the autism spectrum who are studying animation. So I've had them come and talk to my classes before, and my classes have no end of interest in Sonic and the behind the scenes. So in one of my classes, this was so hilarious. Chuck is telling the story of Ugly Sonic, and I didn't realize that, but he just revealed it in the class. He's just like, I take full responsibility for it. And I was like, Chuck, oh my God, why would you put that all on you? And he said, no, it was me, because he said Sega of Japan and Sonic team, they wanted to keep the Sonic design the same, the cuddly, furry, adorable, closer to classic Sonic design, but only rendered in CG. And then the movie team, the original film people, really wanted something dark and scary and something more adult.
Wow.
And they wanted something closer to the original Japanese design of Sonic that came from Japan, actually, with like fangs and claws and, you know, scary spikes and stuff. And so he showed my class the evolution of the character designs. And it was kind of hilarious, though, to see like the scary Sonic and how like Sega of Japan, oh, we reject this. And then like Sonic Team and Sega would come back with, what about something more like this? And then they'd go for months, maybe even a year, they went back and forth on the design of Sonic. And so Chuck was just so desperate to reach a compromise. He said that Ugly Sonic just came from him trying to get both sides closer together, and like it was a mashup of what each side would agree on.
Yeah, that usually happens in that industry. And it's funny because that Sonic took on a life of its own because it showed up in the Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers.
Yes. So, okay. So in this class, here's me and Chuck and Chiako are giving the skinny on what happened with Ugly Sonic. And so one of my students chimes in and he's like, well, Chuck, are you just excited about how well Ugly Sonic has done in the Chip and Dale movie? And the Chip and Dale movie had just come out like the day before. So I hadn't seen it. I didn't really know anything about it. And it would not even occur to me to put Chip and Dale and Sonic together. Those two.
Oh yeah, it was a nice Easter egg.
So different. And Chuck, he told us that Ugly Sonic, he saves the movie. And we're like, what? Like, that was the craziest thing. And I was like, Kristen, are you sure? Like, are you? So we had no idea. So all of us went and watched all of us, meaning Chuck, Chiako, and me, we watched the movie after that. And oh my God, he was the star of the movie. I mean, he saved everything. And it was Ugly Sonic. It was not cute Sonic just pretending to be ugly. No, he was legit the one that was rejected by everyone. But see, there's a place for everybody.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, as far as the voice goes, was there a lot of discussion of getting that voice just right?
I wasn't part of the casting at all.
Okay.
But Roger Craig Smith is the voice, or was the voice, of Sonic across the board. So we had a voice cast that was consistent through the games, the Sonic Boom. For Sonic Mania Adventures, we chose not to use any voices. Because it would be easier to localize it. And we had such a tiny budget. We decided that was one thing that we could cut. We could just use like physical humor to tell the stories. But I don't know. I took it for granted that the consistent voice cast that had been doing it for 10 plus years would also do the characters in the movie. Because even if they needed star names to make a marquee moment for the movie, I don't know how the decision was made for Ben Schwartz to take on the voice, and then Knuckles being Idris Elba. It was different. However, Colleen Shaughnessy, who plays the voice of Tails, she made the leap to the big screen. So she was the voice of Tails when I was working there and everything. But I don't really know. There's always a discussion about star attachments.
Yeah, I grew up in the 1990s when Sonic was voiced by Urkel.
Oh, that's right.
Was there, like, when you did Sonic Boom, was there any discussion like, should we go back to that? Should we stay away from that?
Well, I wasn't a part of the series development of Sonic Boom. So we would have guest characters and so forth. And then we'd audition actors for the show. And in fact, we didn't really audition that many actors. I think it was mostly offers went out to people who were known to the creative team. It wasn't like we were having big, like, oh gosh, who's going to voice Vector? Let's hear 1,000 voices and pick just the right Vector. No, it wasn't like that. And you're right. There have been other voices of Sonic through the years. And we would joke around the office about, like, oh, how cool it would be to revisit the Urkel voice. Maybe we could have him back for something else. Or like we did when I was there, we did a crossover episode. So Cartoon Network had a show on the air called OKKO. And so the OKKO team, huge Sonic fans. Ian Jones-Cordy, creator of OKKO, loved Sonic. And he's like, oh, it would be so wonderful and a dream come true to have Sonic and Tails appear in one of our episodes. And so we worked with them to make that happen. But
oh, wow. And
we cross-promoted it. It was fun. Although when the episode came out, I wasn't working at Sega anymore, but it was fun to work on it. But
yes, I want to switch gears now because I know that you've had a hand in Power Rangers as well. And this is something I haven't heard you talk a lot about. So you were on the ground floor when that came to America as well, were you not?
Well, I wasn't part of it from the beginning. No,
okay.
It was already really popular and really established when I came along. But what happened was I ended up getting a job with one of the gentlemen who was very instrumental in bringing Power Rangers from Japan to the rest of the world. And his name is Frank Ward. And so I worked for Frank. And so part of my job was screening episodes, like rough cuts of episodes, and making sure that the play pattern was proper and would adequately encourage children to want to imitate it and was what Bandai intended, because Frank had been the president of Bandai America and then retained this consulting arrangement with Bandai after he retired, and he was always looking out for Bandai's interests. So as his only employee, that became my only interest too. So I worked on a lot of the Saban Fox properties, but always with the toys at the forefront. Because quite frankly, the minute the toys stop selling, there's no more TV show, there's no more movies.
Right.
The content on the screen is a loss leader, at least with these properties. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say for most kids' properties, the big money is not made from licensing the content on the screen. It's from the sales of all the merch. And so a show will survive even if the ratings are bad. If it's selling gangbusters at the toy store or the toy aisle or online, then the show or the show will stay on the air, more movies will be made and so forth. But not so much the reverse. It could be a really big hit show, but if it's not selling merchandise, then there's not much hope for the show.
So when did you jump aboard? Was it like pre Green Ranger or after, during?
That was so long ago. I have no idea. I feel like the Green Ranger was there, but I can't be 100% sure. Again, a lot of brain cells have died just in the last 10 years, and that was like way more than 10 years ago. So I don't know.
Gotcha. I just remember when the Green Ranger became a thing. Like they built this thing up, and the kid in me was like, "Wow, what is this? A new Ranger?" I was like freaking out because it was the first time they had a villain like infiltrate the Megazord, whatever. So it was just like a big deal. And then he joined the team. And I just remember the toys. Like, I've seen a couple of documentaries about Power Rangers. And they always say once the Green Ranger became a thing, like toy sales just exploded. Like, he was pretty much the face of Power Rangers from then on.
I will be honest. I am not a Power Rangers fan. I respect it,
Gotcha.
and I was very grateful to have the opportunity to work on it. But like, these are like people in rubber suits. This production value is embarrassing. It's terrible. I mean, the lip syncs don't match. As an undergrad, I studied production, and I was like, I would pick apart all the edit, there's a jump cut, and this is wrong. I was very critical. So I was embarrassed to even tell people.
Interesting. Yeah, because I go, if you go back to it now, it was very cheesy, but I think the cheese kind of made it what it was.
But it took time, like a fine cheese, to mature, and
it's taken on a life of its own. It really has.
Yeah.
The nostalgia of it.
Look, you hear people like the Brady Bunch cast who were embarrassed to say that they were on the Brady Bunch, and these are the iconic actors, Maureen McCormick and people like that. I think at a certain point they embraced it, but it took a while. It wasn't like the moment that people discovered the nostalgia of Brady Bunch, they all jumped on the bandwagon and were delighted to revisit it.
Oh, sure. Even when the movie came out, it was just like, let's parody what was.
Yeah. So forgive me, but yes, I was embarrassed by Power Rangers.
No, that's fine. Yeah, because it does have that cheesiness factor too. It's nice to get different takes, whereas you see it for what it was through, and everybody else that I hear from, they have that nostalgic goggles on, so to speak. So it's kind of cool to get that different perspective.
Well, and also, I'm a girl. I am not the target audience, but I enjoyed my time there. One of the things I did was there was a lot of footage being sent from Japan to the US for the purpose of reusing it. And, they were trying to cut costs and recycle whatever they could use. And that was always a debate. And also we would get seasons of the show. We'd get the original Japanese versions a few seasons ahead. So like the American version was a few seasons behind. And so there was always a discussion about like, okay, what is usable for Western audiences from the original Japanese and what needs to be Westernized. And sometimes that was storytelling elements, but sometimes it was a redesign of the toys, which meant redesigns of the costumes. And there was less and less of the original Japanese footage that was used through the years that I was there. It became just little bits of the fight sequences where they were all covered, or all the villains were covered, because it was just, I guess that there were a number of reasons for that. But yeah.
This is interesting. Do you have like specific stories that you can tell about that?
No.
All blur. That's fine.
All blur. Yeah. One refrain that I heard a lot when I was working in Power Rangers days was, girls don't buy toys. It's only little boys ages 2 to 5 who are responsible for all the major toy sales. Therefore, we don't need to make anything for girls aren't important. And if we do make a girls show, like I worked there was a pseudo spin-off of Sailor Moon that happened around the time I was working with Frank, and that was just kind of an afterthought. Like, and so I remember one time Frank couldn't go to one of the development meetings at Saban, and he sent me, and I was sitting at this huge table. It was 9 dudes and me, and they were responsible for making the script of this show intended for girls. But when I got back to the office, I told Frank, I was like, look, at the very least, you need to have at least one woman to at least be present at these meetings, to rein it in, and to be like, no, You don't have to put a unicorn in every scene. You don't have to like every girl cliche that you could think of was being jammed into this show, and the guys were all like patting themselves on the back as if they were these brilliant thinkers.
Well, I know that's what happened over when they brought back My Little Pony, because when it was in the 80s, it was all written by guys and things like that. So when they brought it back in the 2000s, they're like, we got to make sure not to do that. We'll just bring in all girls because we want it to be girl centric.
Yeah, and it's not like it was a bad thing. Bandai just wasn't that toy company. Bandai was very focused on boys action because that's how they had made their big splash. And I worked on a lot of different things besides Power Rangers. Bandai would send us a lot of footage and toy samples from Japan, and they would say like, okay, this is a big hit in Japan. What can you do with it? So sometimes there wasn't even a translation. We'd just have what looked to me like a stream of consciousness kind of a animated thing, and we'd have to impose a story on it. So we'd hire a writer, director, expert in localization, and we'd just try. Sometimes we'd have to pull everything apart and try to put it back together as a different story. Oftentimes we would make a pilot just to be shown at Toy Fair, just to see what the reaction would be. Because a lot of things would get killed based on the reaction from Toy Fair.
I go every year and I see all the offerings, and like half that stuff doesn't even make it to the toy shelf.
Yeah, so there was a lot of that stuff going on.
Was there anything that you showed at Toy Fair one year that you were surprised that you were like, oh, I'm surprised it never went anywhere?
Well, there was Team Angel, which was the reincarnation of Sailor Moon. That a lot of time and effort was put into that, toy prototypes and so forth. But I thought something would come from it because Sailor Moon was always very popular.
Oh,
Even just from the dubbed version that had been on the air.
Tuxedo Mask and all that.
Yeah, right. And so I thought, oh, for sure, something related to Sailor Moon, a new imagining of Sailor Moon, that's sure to go forward, but it never did, not during my time there.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Is there anything you would like to plug?
Oh, yeah. Well, please watch an animated series on YouTube called God's Gang. I am working on that right now, and it's a viral hit. And it has a really sweet, wonderful message of tolerance and kindness and compassion. It's multi-faith superheroes that come together to solve problems in peaceful ways, but it's really funny, and there's a lot of sarcasm and just pop culture references, and the writer creator of the show is quite brilliant, my friend Rob Kuttner, and he comes from the world of late night TV. So like his career is the career that I wish that I would have had. He worked for Conan O'Brien. He wrote
nice.
The Daily Show, Conan O'Brien, Dennis Miller, and he has a lot of sophisticated humor in this show. And he's also written for Teen Titans Go rather, and Ben 10. And so you can see the influence of all of his previous work in God's Gang, which is on YouTube, and we're getting ready to premiere a new episode next week. I think Wednesday is the debut of the new episode, and some of my neurodivergent autistic mentees are in the voice cast, so that's pretty exciting too. So Chris, I'd love to have Rob come on your show too. I think you would love to talk to him.
Oh man, that would be great. Yeah,
he's got a fascinating background that spans so many different genres.
Oh, that's neat. So now when you mentioned that, it kind of sounds to me like the South Park. I know they kind of spoofed the Super Friends, and they had like Jesus and Buddha and being like a super team. Is it kind of like that?
You know, I know South Park, but not that well. But It sounds from what you described. It sounds like it. It sounds like yes. There's So there's one character is called Ninju, and he's a ninja, but he's like a little Jewish Orthodox man, but he's a fierce fighter. And then there's Crisscross, who is a Shaft kind of character, and he's Christian. And then there's a Hindu. But yes, it sounds very much like what you're describing with South Park. Yeah.
So with your show, it sounds like you have an original character representing each faith then.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
So Marlene, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure to talk to you about all this stuff and get geeky with Sonic and all these franchises.
Oh, thank you. It was fun.
All right, well, that's Marlene Sharp. We're going to take a quick break here, and then we will return with more Geek Time, Season 1, Episode 8.
Geek Time. We'll be right back.
All right, if you're looking for the latest and greatest in tabletop miniatures, WizKids has you covered, especially when it comes to D&D. I've been loving what they have been doing with the whole scene over there lately. Last year, they did the D&D 50th anniversary sets, which, man, I tell you what, they sent me a brick, and I was looking up the prices of some of these characters. I had like 5 or 6 characters worth like $100 each. I was geeking out over that. I'm like, holy cow. Yeah, now they have a new set. They're going back to Baldur's Gate, and wow. Miniatures, they've got a board game coming out called Builders of Baldur's Gate, and when I was a kid, boy, that was like the big deal. That was the big thing on the NES console there. Yeah, they had Dungeons & Dragons Baldur's Gate. It was just the big campaign that they were running at the time. As far as the miniatures go, WizKids is just knocking it out of the park when it's coming to D&D. The figures are amazing looking and don't want to miss it. So check it out, WizKids.com, or check it out at your local hobby shop.
Hello everybody, Jason David Frank, and we're here at Wizard World in Ohio. It's Morphin' Time here on Geek Time.
All right, welcome back to Geek Time, Season 1, Episode 8. What a great interview with Marlene Sharp, so thank you for stopping by. My co-host, bringing us into the Tim segment.
I don't think so, Tim. Tim.
Tim, that's my name. That name again is Tim.
Away go troubles down the drain.
Oh, geez. I want to bring up some things that's happening in the Magic the Gathering, my tabletop segment kind of here. The big thing of Magic the Gathering, Commander. There's been a big shakeup in the Commander world because they started messing around with they're calling bracket system. Instead of
Resistance is futile.
What they're going to do is they're going to bracket power level. So that way, when you play with your friends or you play with people, especially out in the wild, you know how powerful your deck is versus someone else.
Now, wait a minute. Is this kind of like fantasy football? Is that there?
No, it's not.
Or King of the Ring? Or what's going on here?
The problem with playing Commander a lot of times is that I will bring a deck that's much more powerful, or somebody will bring a deck that's much more powerful than the table, and it's not a fun experience. Because this is a casual format. So the idea of the bracket system is instead of basically saying, hey, these cards are banned, you can't play with, now they're on a higher tier bracket than other cards. Now it's like, okay, if you're playing a bracket 1, you're playing like a pre-con, cards that aren't necessarily the most powerful, stronger. You're playing a higher bracket. And so a 4 and a 1 really shouldn't probably play at the same table unless you know going in that that's the kind of...
We're grown-ups, motherfucker!
What they're doing now is that they're kind of fixing up the ban list. And because this is happening, and this is why I'm bringing this up, it's driving card prices all over the place right now because everybody's speculating. So cards that were on the Commander ban list are now potentially, they mentioned in April, they're going to unban cards. That was like the worst thing to say because now people are freaking out and they're going, oh, well, this card now is going from $30 to $70 because they think it's going to be played in Commander.
What specifically is jumping up then?
Last year, they had a ban and people got mad. People were online burning cards, and it was flipping out. And it was cards that had been in the format for a long time. So then it's really ridiculous how crazy this whole thing has gone. But now,
Rocco, help the judge find his checkbook.
the big announcement that they were going to start to put together a bracket system so that people had power levels to play. The idea is that they could take things off the ban list so that you could play with all the cards. It's just you need to know what power level you're playing. It's like, oh, I can play with my Primeval Titan, but it's going to be a higher tier than if I sit down with a bunch of newer players and then pub stomp them. And then I'm just like, hey, noob, I'm wrecking you with these powerful cards. So, but yeah, I spent like hours playing with my friends, and we were trying it out with different power levels and different,
I can't remember the name of the card, but what about that one? It was like overpowered. It was like an Innistrad. It was that big beastie guy that they had to ban.
Grizzlebrand.
Yes, Grizzlebrand.
There's talk. His price is going up because there's talk about him being unbanned. That's what I'm saying, man. It's like, I know a lot of people who got rid of and sold what they had because they weren't worth anything at that point to them because they couldn't play with them. But it's crazy, man.
Yeah, keep us in the loop for that.
Yeah,
all right, next up, we'll be talking about TV news. All right, don't have too many things to talk about with the TV stuff. I haven't been watching too many things besides the Only Murders in the Building. One show that I have been checking out is the new Goosebumps. It's on Hulu. I've also seen it on Disney as well. And it has Ross from Friends.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, Ross is back. And it's weird because the reason I bring this up is because the house that he lives in, I swear, I think it's the same exact house that they used in The Flash. It looks just like Barry Allen's house. And I'm like,
it might be, man. There's that's one of the things about the fires that have happened in California. It's like burned down a lot of the houses and stuff that were being used for like movies and stuff.
Yeah, I would love to get confirmation on this. Like, if you're a fan of The Flash, like, look at this house. I know it's the same exact one. I think, they might have moved a couple things, but it looks the exact same.
Yeah.
So, all right. And another thing I wanted to talk about, and I'm excited about this, is Star Trek. The company called Master Replicas is now doing a new line of action figures based off the new Star Trek properties. And they're doing characters based off the Picard series, the Lower Deck cartoon characters. And they're also going into like Star Trek, The Strange New Worlds. I'm not really a fan of that, but still, I think it's cool. The best part of this is the scale. The scale of these figures are going to be in the same exact size as the Playmates figures that they did back in the 90s. So here again, we have nostalgia coming full circle, and I'm excited. They look really great. They don't look like the old Playmates ones where they look goofy plastic, where it kind of looks like them, but kind of not. I mean, the details on these new figures is great.
Live long and prosper.
Right. I know the Star Trek Section 31's not doing that well. I heard it's really goofy. I refuse to watch it because the still shot that I saw, it does not do the franchise justice. It looks more like they're going for the Green Lantern look. I thought he had a power ring. I'm like, what is this? But I hope the figure line does well because I'd love to see them. They spoiled the first wave of figures. I would love to see this flourish into other waves. And so, Tim, are you watching any new TV shows?
I've had this set up on my my TiVo, my Roku for a while, and I just never got around to it. And I checked out the AMC's Interview with the Vampire series. Finally see this. I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. I did read the books when I was younger, and I really like the actor playing Lestat. But the one thing that I'm not crazy about, and I get why they did it, is that they really, really dialed up you could call it the wokeness, but it's basically the gay love. Drinking each other's blood is more enticing them than having a romp in the sack, okay? That's because them being cold-blooded, they can't,
Woke alert, woke alert.
So, in the book, it's very much like you're understanding that as Louis goes on this journey of being a vampire, he learns how to be a vampire. But, they don't have lust. But, yeah, if you're turned off by seeing two guys kiss, don't watch this one. I'll tell you that right now.
Enough said.
And,
All right, Stanley. Yep, you got the final word there. Tim, like the vampire stuff, I am digging the Goosebumps stuff, and time has got us for this Geek Time episode. So thanks for listening. We'll have more guests next week. Special thanks to Marlene Sharp for stopping by and talking about all things Sonic. And yeah, so I can't wait to see what is on tap next time. So thanks for listening, guys. See you next time.
Live long and prosper.
Geek Time.